Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by Monolith Board Games and their Mythic Battles role-playing games Kickstarter. Yes. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, March 19th, 2026. This is live stream 1302. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out it's super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. We skew very heavily into role-playing games. And then a lot of times, most of the time, I will share a topic and we'll kind of discuss the topic. Tonight's topic is railroading in role-playing games. So game masters, dungeon masters, railroading their players during the game sessions. So we're going to talk a bit about that. I know some people are going to disagree with what I've got to say, but that's how it works. It's how it works. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, if you are watching live, there is chat available. It's there. I swear. I promise. I've had people emailing me telling me that when they watch on Memorex, there's no chat. And they said, yeah, they're watching on a laptop. I said, well, have you turned the chat on? They're like, oh, I have to do that? I'm like, yeah, your settings might have the chat turned off. But it's there, I promise. And of course, you can take part in chat if you are a subscriber and have been for at least 60 whole minutes. Practically a lifetime for most people these days. Anyway, if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, comment, by all means, fire away. I'll do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Kathy Evans. Danny W. Gables with us, as is Semper Buffo, the Madman, Keith Olu, J-Man, Matthew Constantine, James Mitchell. Yes, James, I have reached out to Fanatical and asked them for another key. I have not heard anything back yet from the giveaways the other night. Yes, over on Tuesday evening. It was live stream 1300. So I did some giveaways. For some reason, that key didn't work for James. So hopefully we'll get a replacement. Walona's Cave is with us. So is Matthew Blackwell. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is also chiming in. So both of our chat moderators are with us tonight. And I see Chris Lundgren is saying howdy. So it looks like we get a pretty good chat off and running tonight. Yeah. Matthew Blackwell says, it keeps getting longer every time. What's next? Hour and 15 minutes? You know, I used to say it was 10 minutes, and then people told me, no, it keeps coming back as an hour. I was like, oh, well, I haven't set it up to be an hour. I've set it up to be 10 minutes. I guess it's an hour. Let's see. And Torino 429 is with us. Might be a first-time visit in chat or just a different nickname of somebody who does hang out with us. Never know. Never know. All right, so let's talk about our sponsor, because over on GameFound, you will find the Mythic Battles board game Why do I keep saying board game? It's Monolith Board Games. And it's the Mythic Battles role-playing games. You know what? The reality is I have it wrong in my teleprompter and I didn't change it, and that's why I keep saying it wrong. Yeah. 2 apocalypses, 1 lethal engine. Mythic Battles RPG brings the acclaimed board game universe to tabletop role-playing with 2 standalone core books, Pantheon, a Greek post-apocalypse, and Ragnarok, a Norse survival fantasy. Powered by a highly tactical player-facing system where the GM never rolls, you must manage your vital resources and survive the brutal death spiral to forge your legend. It's fully written, beautifully illustrated, and it is prepared to ship in less than a year. In Pantheon, the world is not as it was. Gone are the days of bright skies, full fields, and flashing blue oceans filled with sea life. Gone are the citadels of thought, commerce, and democracy. Also gone are the times when gods walked among humanity, bringing with them bounty, blessings, and divine presence. The earth is rent with great fissures, its soil poisoned by venom, hate, and deep magics. Small communities lie in the ruins of great cities, while the rest of humanity huddles in hidden villages or roams the earth as starving nomads. War, a vast destructive conflict between the gods and the titans, rages over land and sea, leaving nothing but the dead in its wake. In Ragnarok, the cold of the northerly wind sweeps across the world, the crops wither and fish die. Brother fights brother, and the skies darken as the warring gods shatter the earth. Ragnarok approaches. And you are a champion of the gods, summoning your courage to grip your sword with a fire in your eyes, to serve your divinity until death and beyond. Welcome to the world of Mythic Battles Ragnarok and the evolving story of the end of days. These are 2 separate books. They're 2 separate settings. I gotta be honest, I would think you could mash them up together if you wanted. You can reserve a copy of either hardcover with its accompanying PDF for a pledge of €55, or if you want to grab both books in print with their PDFs, you can do so for a pledge of $115. There are some extra goodies with those as well. This runs through April 2nd. Expected fulfillment is this November, so a nice, fast turnaround time. Sweet. So yes, Monolith Board Games is our sponsor here at the Dispatch for the next couple weeks, basically. Yeah, not too shabby. For some reason, I have like a little bit of a frog in my throat. Me. You. Oh, damn it, I hit the wrong direction there. Sorry about that. Well, we'll get that little Chiron out of the way. Get out of there. Get going. That's better. All right, let's see. We got a few more people popping on into chat. W. Forge, Pete Strakolich, and Savage Splendor are all popping on in to hang with the gang. All right, let's get on down to brass tacks and let's talk about tonight's news, because the Galactic Ancestry Sourcebook is going to arrive next month for Starfinder 2nd edition. And here is the lowdown from Paizo Inc. The cantina is open. Okay. Well, I have to make sure it's a little bit off. I don't want, copyright flags for the cantina music. Hey, okay, real quick, side note. How many of you out there, because I know it's an older crowd who hangs out for this show, how many of you out there actually had the cantina music as a 45? I know I did. Yep, we did. Anyway, the cantina is open. This 224-page rulebook is packed full of playable alien ancestries for Starfinder 2nd Edition games, including 21 brand new options like the Lucky Blue Whirlinessy, the Sentient Rollerball Bantrid, or even a blazing miniature sun called a Novian. In addition to this intergalactic cast of science fantasy species, are a host of stellar options for familiar ancestries, including Starfinder favorites like the reptilian Vesk and insectoid Shirens, and fantasy classics like gnomes, elves, and goblins in space. On top of that, the brand new gap-touched versatile heritage connects players to the history-breaking event at the heart of the Starfinder setting, while giving them special abilities, and the xenometric android allows players to create robotic versions of any Starfinder alien, not just humans. As with all Starfinder 2nd Edition material, Starfinder Galactic Ancestries is fully compatible with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, allowing players and game masters to incorporate interstellar options into their favorite fantasy campaign. What exciting alien character are you going to play first? The 224-page hardcover is going to carry an MSRP of $64.99 when it lands April 1st. No fooling. So there you have it. Sweet. I say it all the time. Starfinder has at least first edition of Starfinder, and it won't take long for this edition to catch up, had by far the most options available for player characters to create just their very own player character. Yes. Very nice. All right. So I see that we've got a few people chiming in saying, yep, they had the Star Wars disco music. And as well as Torino says they had the cantina music. Yep. I'm not talking about the disco version. I'm talking there was a 45 of the actual John Williams music. It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild. All right, let's see. I think we got Kevin R. Smith just popped on into chat, as has Bamboozled Great Crowd. They say their favorite 45 was Kokomo from the Beach Boys. Oh gosh, I think by then I was into cassettes. Though that was not a cassette that I owned. So Bamboozled Great Crowd asked, did anyone see the Shadow Dark Lucky Charms meme with vitamins TPK? No, I have not. I have not seen it. Bard the Bear Wolfson is also joining us in chat. On to our next news piece. A new Traveler Adventure supplement is now out from Mongoose Publishing. And here's the latest on Fifth Frontier War brushfires. Any great empire will find itself embroiled in brushfire wars among its possessions and colonies. Forgotten by most citizens, these conflicts flare up and sputter out over time. Now, against the backdrop of the Fifth Frontier War, the brushfires of Aramis threaten to consume the whole Towers cluster. From a Xiang raid on Focaline to Imperial-held Junity, the travelers will experience the Fifth Frontier War from a wholly different perspective. The adventure takes place along the periphery of the Riverland Theater, mostly in the Aramis subsector. The area the travelers will be operating in is separated from the major fighting going on around Ifete by a gap of sparse systems, though access to the region is easy from Vargar space. The region is a backwater, unimportant economically and not on the way to anywhere. As a result, it is seeing the outbreak of brushfire wars rather than major conflicts. Freshfire sees a crew of independent travelers follow a simple job straight into the heart of an erupting war zone, where they will see great heroics and villainous opportunists as they try to thread their way through the fighting. The 144-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to grab just the PDF alone, you can do so by popping on over to Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. Tessie Trekkie asks, non-RPG question, do Americans really still pay their mortgage, rent, and other bills by actual check, as opposed to just utilizing a direct extraction from your bank account? You know, talking about checks like a paper check. I will say that I have not had a checkbook in at least 10 years. So I do not use checks for anything. And any other sort of payments around these here parts is just, direct from the accounts. So I do know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people still pay with checks. A lot of people who are older, elderly people write checks because they don't trust the electronics, And it's like, oh, well, I wouldn't trust the check. Because for one, these days, don't even try to post date a check, because that ain't gonna happen. If you told a friend, hey, do me a favor, don't cash that check for a couple of weeks. Yeah, no problem. And you post date it, and they just take it to the bank and deposit it. Guess what? It's coming out of your account right now. So I don't miss checks. Not at all. And I'm pretty decent with math. I'm not like Rain Man or anything like that, but I'm decent enough with math where I know within about $1, maybe $2 of what I have in my accounts. So there you go. Kevin R. Smith says they still have a checkbook, but they only use it once every blue moon. Yep, as Kevin R. Smith points out, a lot of older people still pay for their groceries with checks. Yes. Yep, that's usually where I see people writing checks. All right, moving right along. Studio Agate and Humble Bundle have joined forces to bring an epic bundle featuring Fate Forge. And I've got the deets on the deal. A love letter to swords and sorcery. An epic bundle of gorgeous original art, thrilling engagements, and countless hours of gameplay has arrived with Fate Forge. Your adventures through this comprehensive 5th edition library will transport your party through the grandiose landscapes of Iana, filled with colorful civilizations and exotic locations like the bustling Free City. Strategize with your party to defeat the demon princes of the Melancholian Moon and the brutal barbarian lords of the Kane hordes to bring peace to the realm. Discover Studio Agate's award-winning Fate Forge series before it's gone. Help support the charity Comic Books for Kids. You can jump aboard for $15. If you want to go all in, grab all 69 items. Yes, you heard me correctly, 69 items that are on offer. Just make a minimum donation of $25 through April 8th. Once again, your purchase will benefit Comic Books for Kids, which I found out earlier today. I've heard of it. I know other Humble Bundles have benefited that charity. I guess it's out of Chicago. I was like, wow, nice. Very, very nice. W. Ford says, remember when you could write cash on a check to get money quickly, or you wrote cash on it if you really didn't know the person that you were giving those funds to? I was like, yeah, I know. I owe you $25 here. Harry Chuckles and Klontos are with us tonight. We had a pretty good sized chat rocking and rolling. And it's all about economics tonight, gang. Maybe I should have changed the topic to pay by check or not. As Boomerman Dan Webb has popped on in, so has Mark Hawkswell. So they write at least one check a week. They'd rather use checks at small businesses to avoid them or sometimes them, as in the purchaser having to pay a credit card fee. Yes, if you ever wonder why a store you go to does not take American Express, it's because American Express charges a far higher credit card fee to the retailer than anybody else. I think Discover charges the smallest percentage. All right, so you want to save more money on games? Well, I'll tell you what, just in time for the Major League Baseball opening day, Akers Games has teamed with Bundle of Holding for a money-saving offer on Dead Ball Baseball with Dice. Hey, bada bada! Just in time for the March opening day, this all-new Dead Ball bundle presents, well, you guessed it, Dead Ball, the dice game that simulates baseball games past and present from Akers Games. Dead Ball is a fast-paced game for one or two players that uses real statistics every fan understands, like batting average and ERA and wins over replacement. No, I'm joking. It's that part of it. Yes, on base plus slugging. Yeah, that's it. No, it's not. So new players can pick it up in minutes. Using this simple, intuitive rule set and polyhedral dice, you can simulate an entire game between real or imaginary teams in about 20 minutes. Because Dead Ball is based directly on real stats, you play as any team you want. Pit history's greatest teams against each other. Watch today's All-Stars go head-to-head with the legends of the past. Any matchup you can imagine, Dead Ball makes real. Don't want real players? Generate your own players, teams, and leagues faster than you can say, play ball! Whatever you love about baseball, Dead Ball brings it to life. For just $9.95, you'll get all 5 titles in the Dead Ball collection, which has a retail value of $50, as DRM-free PDFs, including the complete Dead Ball Baseball with Dice 2nd edition rulebook, along with the Pay What You Want 1st edition, the Historical Edition, Dead Ball 1909, and 3 supplements that provide statistics for the 2022, 2023, and 2024 seasons, Dead Ball Year 2, Year 3, and Year 4. These savings run through March 31st. I checked out the 2nd edition core book for Dead Ball, and I found it to be kind of interesting. I was like, I will tell you, it's more a role-playing game than anything else if you take a dive into it. As a game that you would be... So let's say you're like, I don't want to spend the money on a Stratomatic season, right? Hey, I'll try this Dead Ball game. I would say that it probably doesn't do justice to the modern game as well as it does the turn of the 20th century baseball. And there's like the core book's got a fictional Southern League, and it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So I want to point out, it's not necessarily, oh, hey, well, yeah, I'm going to stat up this year's Toronto Blue Jays. No, not really. So as Kevin R. Smith says, the actual Dead Ball era, yes. In fact, because that's what the original 1st edition rule book was. It was supposed to be the Dead Ball era before what they considered up to like 1925 5 or so. So, yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So check it out. Less than $10 gets you well, it's not the entire line. It is a big chunk of the dead ball baseball with dice lineup. The other thing I should mention, I think the sell sheet info is a little bit misleading because it says the 2022, 23, and 24 seasons. Yeah, but not of Major League Baseball. It's, like I said, there's a role-playing element to this. So it's got the next season from this fictional Southern League, which is included in the game. Just letting you know. So some discussion about opening day. So Clantos says the Tigers opening day is Friday. Yes, and the Tigers have one of the best play-by-play guys around, who the Chicago White Sox, who I am not a fan of, were too stupid to keep on board. And the guy they replaced him with sucks. Especially his first season, he was awful. But then again, so are the White Sox, so it doesn't really matter. Now, does it? All right. So let's see. So Clantos was mentioning the Tigers. I know the Cubs opening day against the Nationals is a week from today. Bamboozle Great Crowd says The Natural is a great movie. Book very different. Yes, completely different. Let's just say Roy Hobbs is a piece of shit in the book. For the most part. Like many athletes over the years, reality-wise. Yes. All right. So Pete Strakulich has pointed out they played a lot of roll-em baseball. I'm not familiar with that. Used 2d6 per batter. Double one, double sixes was a home run. Man, that's a lot of homers. But I've always been more of a baseball fan, with statistical reality. Those sorts of games. So yes, I always enjoyed my Status Pro, Stratomatic, Sherco baseball. I was never an APBA fan. It was kind of sterile, I guess, would be the word I would use. So, Boomerang Dan Webb said they had the original Dead Ball. Let's get the more recent books. We're going to check out the bundle. Very nice. Very nice. All right, let's talk about our final news piece, because there's a new supplement for the second edition of the Scion role-playing game. It's landed from Onyx Path Publishing. And let's finish up with Pandora's Box. From petty minions to mighty champions, from trivial twists of luck and chance to soaring abilities and world-shaking powers, Pandora's Box of knacks, boons, and birthrights contains every power provided across the many books released for Scion 2nd Edition, assembled with a comprehensive contents page so you can easily locate the power you need in an instant. No longer will you need to stop your heroic tale of gods and titans to find the right ability in the right book. They're all here in Pandora's Box. It's important to keep in mind this PDF is an advanced PDF, meaning that it's not completely done. There's going to be some errors, some errata that needs to be addressed. So, Onyx Path Publishing releases the PDF first so they can have their consumers catch some of the errors that may have slipped past their proofreaders. Something, to be honest, I appreciate companies doing. I know some people get pissed off. They're like, well, I just bought this PDF and oh, it's got errors. Yeah, and when they fix them, you'll get the updated PDF. But to me, it works very nicely rather than purchasing the print product and sitting there reading through it like, what the hell? Do you know what proofreading is? The 254-page PDF is available now over at Drive-Thru RPG for $19.99. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right, so that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I mentioned Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to swing on by Drive-Thru RPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, Storytellers Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. You will see that currently we have a Square ad. It is, I think it's Classic RPGs, if I remember correctly. If you click on that and you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on that sale. And of course, all those commissions really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around on a month-to-month basis. If you're enjoying the video, give it a quick thumbs up. Doesn't hurt if you kind of, like it in chat too, if you're watching live, hanging out in chat. Give it a little pump that way. Anyway, give it a thumbs up if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource. Hell, if you just like what we do. A couple of other ways you can support the outlet as well. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. That was refreshing. And you can even become a monthly member of our Patreon. Yes, you'll find links to all of that down in the show notes. Also in the show notes, you'll find an invite link to our Discord server. It's free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. Then, of course, during my live streams, I like to give a shout out to our Patreon members. So a tip of the cap to Kaval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Flint Fireforge, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, and the Madman. Much appreciated, everybody. Thank you kindly. All right. Who just asked, what's the best baseball? Oh, it was Bamboozle Great Crowd asking, what's the best baseball game? Or is there one? I got to be honest. I think it really depends on what you're looking to achieve out of your, statistical or simulation baseball board game. So if you're looking to crank through seasons very quickly, probably some of these are out of print too, but Pennant Race from Avalon Hill. And in fact, if I remember correctly, I think they included the info that you needed to create your own rosters, based on the previous season. And if they didn't, they made it super easy for you to figure out. So you had that. There was Status Pro Baseball. So that was also Avalon Hill. That did give you the information for you to make your, cards from previous seasons. As long as you had, for the most part, some very easily accessed stats, you could do all of that. I will say, I was always a big fan of Stratomatic Baseball with the handedness. So you had, versus lefties versus righties. You had your pitcher, versus right-handers versus left-handers. So I always liked that. I always liked the splits. And there were a few games that did that. Pursue the Pennant was another. I think that ended up being sold to somebody else and it became a different game. And there was Sherco Baseball that I liked a bunch. In my opinion, I think the best out of all of them is one of the originals. It's Stratomatic. But you are not going to like rock through a season super quickly. Playing a game against a friend, especially if you're playing with the advanced rules, and as years have gone by, there are more and more advanced rules that make the game feel more and more like real baseball, not some board game baseball. And I would say probably about an hour. Take you about an hour to get through a game these days. Tabletop Scholar is joining us tonight. Welcome. I see DB's with us. I think DB said that they were just getting back from their local game con. Nice. Christopher Lundgren says the best baseball board game they own is Baseball by the Numbers. See, that's another one I don't know. You got to realize I would say since probably the 80s, there have been a lot of, like, I don't want to say custom crafted, but almost like handcrafted sports games from people who've pretty much made the games in their own homes. So there's a lot of stuff out there that, because I remember, because I would read the sporting news all the time back when the sporting news was a real legitimate, little newspaper of sports. And it was very heavily into baseball. I think baseball was its main sport. So I used to get that all the time. There'd be all these different ads for these different football games, basketball, boxing. Avalon Hill did a lot of really good sports games. In fact, Title Bout, their boxing game, if you were a fan of boxing, it was really, really well done. And there were a few hundred boxers included. Now, of course, this is up until probably the very late 80s. So I don't remember them including information about how to rate the boxers to make your own cards. But yep, I've always been a sports game fan. I got to say, I used to always get Out of the Park baseball every year. I haven't picked it up in the last couple of years. I should. It's just, I don't have that kind of time to devote to, running a team season to season, which was really good. Pretty accurate stats. Not so accurate where it was like, wow, there's like no wiggle room. But still, yeah, pretty well done. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about railroading in role-playing games. Game masters, dungeon masters, railroading their players during their game sessions. But before we do, I've got something I want to tackle, because you may recall, if you were watching Tuesday's show, it was episode 1300. It was live stream 1300. So there were giveaways. So I gave away some bundles from Fanatical. And then I also floated out some other giveaways for folks who didn't get the trivia questions, or who, as some people had pointed out, they're like, hey, I knew the answer to that question. And then YouTube threw up a fucking ad. So I couldn't answer. I'm dropping the F-bomb. They didn't drop the F-bombs. So, of course, I also had one where you were commenting on the video. And then I had another where it was swing on over to thegaminggang.com and comment on one of the articles, one of the posts. Could be news, whatever. So I've got the winners. So from YouTube, we have Not Here for Long, some character named Chris Lundgreen or something like that. Not ringing a bell. Kevin R. Smith. Yes, he was one of the people who got burned by the ads, as well as Cooperative Waffles. So those are 4 YouTube winners, because there were only 4 comments. I was like, wow, people don't want to win stuff. It's like, $20 game PDF. I don't want that. I'd have to spend time typing up a sentence or two. No, forget that. There's a reason why AI is leaping through everything. From the website, we have the Dark Heart of Ukrol, Matt Gandy, Danny Gable, Savage Splendor, and Hank. So, what did you win? Well, it is your choice. You can choose from the Call of Cthulhu Investigator's Handbook. It's essentially the core rule book for Call of Cthulhu. I also am offering out the Old School Essentials Classic Rules. We've got Cyberpunk Red from Artel Saurian Games. And why did I throw out the publisher? I didn't mention the publishers for Call of Cthulhu and Old School Essentials. I like Cyberpunk Red. What can I tell you? I like it. It's pretty cool. Or you can also go with the Traveler Second Edition or Mongoose Traveler Second Edition, the current Traveler from Mongoose Publishing. So that, yes, and it is the 2022 updated rule book. So what you need to do is you need to email Jeff McAleer at thegaminggang.com. If you have a problem figuring that out, I want to say the email address is on Gaming Gang page here on YouTube, or just go to The Gaming Gang. It's not Gaming Gang. It's thegaminggang.com. You will see there is a contact link. That also has my email address. Yeah, if you can't spell the name or The Gaming Gang. If you can't spell The Gaming Gang, you have a hard time getting to the website. But let me know which one you choose, and I will get that PDF out to you. I will say, if you won on the website, you got to make sure that you use the same email address that you left your comment through. So, Cooperative Waffle says, drifted off waiting for the stream. So they're catching up. What is occurring? I read, yet haven't heard. Well, I guess Cooperative Waffles didn't win then. I don't know. I can't help it. Anyway, so there you have it. So some pretty cool giveaways. Keith Lewis said it was an excellent Cobalt Press bundle. If they ever play 5e again, it would be most likely with their products. Well, you also have Tales of the Valiant. That's their product. You don't have to be supporting Wizards of the Coast. So you've got that. I'm kind of surprised. Did they not well, think about it. I don't think there was anything there that was specifically Tales of the Valiant in that bundle. So yeah, I guess they wouldn't have included that in there. But yeah, that's what I would recommend. You could use that, be all set. So if you're kind of like, yeah, I don't want to be running Dungeons and Dragons. There are, 5e adjacent role-playing games out there, including Tales of the Valiant, which I like. I like it. I'm a fan of Cobalt Press. Tell you, they're a good company. They treat me right. Wolfgang Bauer's always fun to talk to. He always retweets stuff. He likes episodes of the show. He likes the videos. And it doesn't have to be Cobalt Press stuff. So I appreciate that quite a bit. All right. So got rid of that house cleaning. So we are going to be talking about Game Master's railroading players in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission. I looked all serious there for a minute, didn't I?
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Japan rode rickshaws everywhere. But when the kids sat down to eat, they sure did miss their favorite treat. Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid, tastes great. Wish we had some, can't wait. A story man who heard the kids then clapped his hands and said,
Hi, Kool-Aid keeps me very wise. Stand by, please, for big surprise.
Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid, so great. Once you tried it, no can wait.
Honorable Kool-Aid, most refreshing, much loved by whole family. Father, mother, Japanese boy, Japanese girl. A package make 2 full quarts. Cost only 20 yen, just 5 cents. With lots of ice, so nice.
The Kool-Aid kids are off again to visit other lands. Be sure to join them when they do.
Join them in some Kool-Aid too.
Kool-Aid, Kool-Aid, so great. Once you tried it, no can wait.
That's your 4th cup of Wilkins instant coffee. Haven't you had enough?
I refuse to answer.
Why?
I'm taking the 5th.
The most gripping and entertaining film I've seen in many months, maybe years, 10 plus. Gary Franklin, KCBS TV. John Voight gives a fiery performance. Janet Maslin, The New York Times. A sensational picture, intense and brutally powerful. Variety. The best action movie of the year, Jan Herman, New York Daily News. Exciting, powerful, and thrilling as anything I've seen in years. John Corcoran, KABC TV. It's a success, a super thriller. Michael Wilmington, The Los Angeles Times.
He's pushing me.
Please, try again, and I'll send you out of here in plastic.
He wants me to jump the wall. Come on, go for it. Thanks, youngster. I owe you one.
Hey, Manny, take me with you.
They escaped together. They battled the elements. They achieved the impossible.
Smile, man, we're free.
But their train to freedom was out of control.
I don't know what happened, but there's no engineer on this train. There's nobody on this train but us.
The brake shoes have burned off. The overspeed control must have gotten screwed up. Engineers do not just quote. You want to be a tough guy? You want to be a legend? Go back! Sucker, come on!
They ain't getting caught alive. Let's have some fun.
You'll never stop this train, you hear me, Regan? Never! I'll kill you, man. You die, sucker. Don't make me kill you. Get it down! Manny, get it down!
Their struggle for freedom became a fight for their lives. John Voight, Eric Roberts, Rebecca De Mornay, and Andrei Konchalovsky film. Runaway Train.
Runaway Train. It's actually a really good movie. I remember watching that on VHS when it first came out on, VHS. And it was, one of those video store rentals where you're like, oh, what's this? I wonder what this is. Oh, it could be cool. And most of the time you did that and you'd watch it and you'd be like, oh, well, that's $3 I'll never have again. And that was one of these movies where it's like, man, damn, that was good. So there you go. Boomerman Dan Webb. I get it. Railroading your players. Haven't you realized that I try to throw the movie trailer to at least have something, even if it's just the genre we're talking about? So yes. Yes. DB says Kurosawa wrote that. Really? Wow. That's pretty wild. Bard the Bear Wolfson has mentioned it's on Tubi because, many times Pete Strackledge shows up very possibly simply for the brief intermission to kind of give him ideas of stuff he can watch that evening. Like Tubi or YouTube or what? Isn't Tubi the one that they're shutting down? I know there's one that's getting. It might be. I think it's owned by like YouTube. And that's why they're like, yeah, we're just gonna pull the plug on this because we've got these movies on YouTube. So we might as well just have people watch them on YouTube. And I also see Max Apocalypse has joined us in chat. So welcome aboard. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about railroading players. And the reason why we're going to talk about this is it's kind of a topic once again in the RPG sphere. And I guess Matt Mercer was doing an interview with someone and he was talking about how he creates situations to put things in front of the players to kind of steer them in different directions, right? So, of course, online, you always, you could say, it could be noon and the sun is out and you could say, yeah, it's the sun is shining today. There's going to be somebody online who's going to disagree with you and tell you you're wrong. And this is why you're wrong. So it became kind of a little bit of a debate floating around on social media about railroading players or not railroading players because someone had posted that quote that Matt Mercer had shared and said, well, that's railroading the players. You shouldn't be doing that. So first of all, let's tackle the situation that Matt Mercer was talking about because you got to keep in mind. You got to keep in mind. Got to keep in mind. Critical Role and shows like that. I know it's going to shock many of you out there. But those aren't real game sessions going on. I know everybody's like, no, it's not scripted. Okay, maybe it's not. But it isn't all a complete surprise for everybody around the table that's going on. Dan Webb says, yeah, that's soda you're drinking. It is. Sadly, you can't find Diet Right anywhere anymore. So it is the Sam's Zero Sugar. With a bunch of rum. Anyway, okay, I'm not knocking Critical Role. What I'm trying to say is that it's one thing to need to herd the cats in a specific direction when you're doing a show. Not so much when you're sitting at the table with your friends. So I could see Matt Mercer talking about that. And Pete Strakowitz says, thank you, Jeff. Critical Role is choreographed. Yes, of course it is. And it's entertainment. I still have really never watched it. So just it's not my thing, you know. I'm not one of these people who watches, like, thankfully, I don't think my nephew Cameron does it as much as he once did. He'd sit there and he'd watch streamers playing video games, and then he'd want to go buy the video game. And a lot of times it was stuff that had like storylines and that. And it'd be like, why bother now? You've seen it. You've seen everything that's going on. You're like, why watch something? See, this is, once again, this is where it's like, I feel like I'm a really old man and I should be yelling at kids to get off the lawn. I don't understand the concept of watching people do stuff when you could be doing that stuff. It's one thing to watch, you know, professional divers or cliff divers or something. Okay. But to watch somebody playing a video game that you could go out and buy and enjoy yourself and experience for the first time yourself, beyond me. Well, that's how it is. That's how it is. Anyway, Freevee is what's being shut down. It's owned by Amazon. I got to be honest, I don't think I ever watched anything on Freevee. I have watched Tubi, watched Crackle from time to time. Kevin R. Smith says, I doubt Critical Role is completely scripted because they wouldn't have 4-hour-plus shows, but I'm sure there's some planning on some things just to keep people entertained. I also think, I'm not necessarily saying that everybody around the table knows exactly what's going to happen, but I do think that there are things that are shared with some of the performers so they can prepare some zingers. Maybe not. Dan Webb says, I think the railroad comment wasn't called for. During a real game session, the DM has obviously spent time preparing the adventure and the story. Let the DM lead the story. So I said, you're probably going to find my opinion some of you are going to disagree with. Because we've discussed this before. Okay. So, Tessie Trekkie says there are times where railroads are acceptable for one-shot con games. Okay, so let's make sure we're all on the same page as far as what railroading is. Because I think there might be some misconception out there. The easiest way to sum up railroading at the game table is putting your players in situations where the decisions they make truly have no impact on where the story goes. To me, that's railroading. Okay? Having a shiny cherry red button that the player characters all want to push, to me, is not going to be railroading. That's interactivity. And old school role-playing games, especially fantasy role-playing games, some of the best adventures have a lot of interactivity with the environment because it's also kind of understood that there is risk and reward. You're not going to get the reward without taking the risk. Right? So there's like, oh, hey, well, there's, the gargoyle's mouth with the big, it looks like it's awfully wide. Maybe wide enough to slip your hand and arm into. Well, that's not railroading. That's setting the scene. And your players, if they've played a little bit, they already know. They're kind of like, well, I see. Maybe we should do that. Now, I pointed out before that if you're running a horror role-playing game, like I run a lot of Call of Cthulhu, if I just based Call of Cthulhu on emergent play, I will tell you right now, those adventures would suck. I would also think a role-playing game like Paranoia, which is satirical and, there's some railroading there. You got to be railroading the player characters, or I shouldn't say player characters, the players. So I think how you go about railroading the players is a big deal. Plus, it also depends on the sort of game you're playing. So emergent play is super easy to start taking place at your game table when you're running a fantasy hex crawl. And it's sort of like, okay, well, what direction you guys want to go into now? Or if you're running a game like, say, Old School Essentials, either classic or advanced fantasy, where it's a situation. This is the dungeon. This is what's in this particular place of the dungeon. This is what these monsters or inhabitants, whatever, are up to. And you take it from there. Because that's how the game loop is designed. Game loop is exploration. You're looking for traps, right? Checking to say, okay, what's in this room? Let's look for treasure. Oh, there's monsters. Or, monsters are popping out as random encounters and things like that. Yes. Then you've got loads and loads of emergent play. If you're playing something that is a role-playing game that is supposed to have a very particular vibe, then you're going to find more railroading going on. Now, one thing I can never abide is a game master telling their players what their characters do or feel emotionally. I have no time for that. That is like some of the worst adventure design ever. When you see some read aloud and you're like, the hell you say? You're like, no. All right, let's see what chat's got to say here. TV said anyone who's played games any degree knows Critical Role is as real as reality TV. Hey, a little interesting side note. My brother was a stand-in, or I shouldn't say he was the stand-in for Eric Roberts in a movie that was shot in Chicago. I mention that because we just saw the trailer for Runaway Train. This is long after. This is like 5 years ago or so. Maybe a little longer than that. All right. Let's see. So a little more discussion about Critical Role. Pete Stracklet says real 5e games crawl at higher level. That stuff nobody wants to see. Nobody got time for that. Nobody ain't got time for that. Or nobody got time for that. Maybe it's nobody got time for that. I remember that was pretty funny. Okay. Bard the Bear Wolfson says, I don't watch video games, but I watch live RPGs to learn the game sometimes. That I could see. I could see that, or at least even maybe get a feel for the game, right? Because usually nowadays, most games have a quick start or something you can track down online to get an idea how they work mechanically. But a lot of times you're not exactly sure what the game might be aiming for. So more discussion about Critical Role. Hey, maybe that should have been the topic tonight. Max Apocalypse says, I think the game master of any game sets the stage and the players make it a story with their choices. Right. Cooperative Waffle says, trust the computer. Technology is our friend. That will be Tuesday's topic, by the way. I've already decided what our topic is for next Tuesday. Bamboozled Great Crowd says, to me, a railroad is when the DM purposely looks for a particular outcome to fit their wants versus an organic outcome. Peter Eckledge says, this is why Dungeon Masters should be encouraged to read books. Railroading happens when DM perspectives are narrow. It's also a lack of imagination, I think. TV says, I guess your brother wasn't in Pope of Greenwich Village. No, he was not. I can't remember the damn name. If I remember right, I think Eric Roberts was like a bad guy in it. No, it wasn't Doctor Who either. Way too far back. Let's see. DB said, I had an adventure for a game that I won't name that was so sparse, I had to watch a video to find out how to even start it. It helped. Yeah, I mean, I could see that too. Sure, I could easily see that. So as far as with the railroading, if your players have no agency in the game, then what is the point of running the game? And like I said, there are some games out there like Call of Cthulhu. There are certain things that you want your players to experience so that the story progresses, that they get drawn into it, and then hopefully they start putting clues together, and that also helps to advance the storyline there as well. So if you just drive their player characters to certain areas and certain conclusions, then yes, you are railroading your players. I remember even all the way back in the 80s when I was running Call of Cthulhu, and for the next time we have trivia, it was for Elliot, Paul, and Ed. If you didn't watch Tuesday's show, that was one of the trivia questions. Who was my gang that I ran Call of Cthulhu for in the 80s, 90s? But even then, I knew I had to let them kind of wander around a bit, or here's a good word. Some of you may not know what it means. Gallivant. Before kind of trying to rope them back in to get them back onto the track here. DBS, how do you spell Ed? Anywho, I don't think it's such a huge deal if you're the game master and you're trying to direct the proceedings. I don't think that's a bad thing. As you've heard me say before, railroads can be a good thing, especially, depending on the scenery you get to look at on the way, right? On your trip as you're on the railroad. So this is what I don't understand, because most gamers out there understand that, okay, most role players with any experience with games outside of only Dungeons and Dragons understand that certain games are looking to present and provide a specific sort of experience, right? Like Call of Cthulhu is supposed to be spooky. It's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to have tension, but it's also investigative, and players have to figure things out. They have to peel back the layers as they're continuing onward. A game like Paranoia. Paranoia is supposed to be funny, satirical, but it's also supposed to be pretty wise-assed, right? So I think players with experience outside of Dungeons and Dragons do understand that there are times when the game master should be kind of directing the action, but the players are still making the decisions. I think part of it is, I think part of the railroading comes down to, and this, some people might disagree with me on this. I think the less prep you put into a game session, the more railroading goes on. Because you haven't, as a game creator, as an adventure creator, you haven't kind of bounced around the different things that could happen. And yes, we all know that players are always going to do something that you have not even considered. We know it. But every once in a while, they do things that you actually kind of, I had a feeling they would do this. But once again, to me, that's not railroading. It's knowing that you have various different options for whatever the adventure is as the players progress. And if they happen to go in a direction that you already foresaw, you're like, yes, very nice. Greenfield Grace Guys is with us in chat. Might be a first time visit with us live. So welcome aboard. I know Daryl Errett has popped on in. Daryl says, if the players derail the situation, go with it. I completely agree. And as I've told stories about Call of Cthulhu games from decades ago, Elliot's nephew, Paul, everybody knew whenever we'd have a game session, and we would play long game sessions. We're talking like 8 hours. We might do 10 hours. We might do 5 hours, take a break, go get something to eat, bum around a little bit, come back and play for another 5 hours, right? But we always knew that Paul was going to get to a point where he just had to have his own thing going on for about 20 minutes or so, and then we could get back to the proceedings. Now, I'll tell you one thing that I don't put up with is that the if the players suddenly just go bonkers, I'm not going to let that go for the rest of the session. Not running Call of Cthulhu, I'm not. I'm running Dungeon Crawl Classics, any sort of like old school fantasy role-playing game, anything that's basically, because I've told you before, I rely on published adventures, and I kind of break them apart, keep things I like, throw out stuff that I'm not super keen on, or replace it with something I feel is maybe more entertaining, at least entertaining to me. Because remember, the game master is not some hired clown sitting at your table. Usually, they are a human being. They need to be entertained too. Kevin R. Smith says, gallivanting before being roped in. Now we have a Western theme going. Yep. That's right. Dan Webb says you have to gallivant a bit to wrangle up some clues. DB says you can really tell who never plays investigation games because they are very much against railroading. Yeah, but I think a lot of the people who are against railroading, okay, I don't want to paint this with a broad brush. You know me, I try to be diplomatic. I think some of the people who were like all up in arms about Matt Mercer's comment don't even have a clue what railroading really is. they've never been a player in a game where they were railroaded. Or they've heard the worst case scenario of, railroading. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's like going, I don't even know if Disney still has this ride, but Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, for those of you who know what I'm talking about. It's like, yeah, we got in the car and we sat back and everything just happened to us. It's like, okay, that's a railroad. So Greenfield Gray Skies says they're currently running their first mini campaign, and they're definitely railroading. Mostly because they're really quick. Oh, they're not quick enough yet to allow free roaming in space. I just don't have enough crib notes yet. DB says, isn't going bonkers part of Call of Cthulhu? I said the players go bonkers. I said I'm not going to let them do that all session long. So yes, Greenfield Gray Sky says, yeah, it's her first time catching the show live. Well, thanks for joining us. Bamboozled Great Crowd says, I have a story arc. Modules have a story arc. Players tell the story and how they get to the end. And I, as the DM, just react to the player's madness. Well, also using a published adventure, when you get to, the finale, right? The big final climax of your adventure campaign, whatever, the players have to have an opportunity to fail. And that has to be real. You can't just hand the victory over to the players. That's also railroading. Every time the players try to do something, their characters try to do something, and they're always successful, that's railroading. Peaceful Porcupine is with us once again. Good to see you. Says, I don't do published adventures, so if they go off in a weird direction, that's what I'm prepping the next day. Right, exactly. But I will also point out that some of the worst offenders as far as railroading are those who don't use published adventures. I'm not saying that's the case with Peaceful Porcupine, and a lot of the reason there is because they've got a plot, they've got a storyline, they've got okay, so this happens and this happens, and this is going to be super cool. One of the reasons why, the thought process nowadays is, if you're going to run a campaign and even if you're creating a campaign, you don't need to put together your whole game world, right? You don't have to have 20 sessions plotted out. Just have the next night and maybe a part of a game after that, have an idea of what's going on. But when someone invests tons of time and energy into a particular idea of their own, they will tend to veer into railroading because they want their friends, their players, to see what they've come up with, all the cool things they've concocted. So it's kind of funny. So on one hand, it's sort of like, okay, so if you don't do any prep, you're probably more apt to railroad. But then if you do too much prep, you're probably far more likely to railroad there too. But I think the biggest deal as far as this goes is the game that you're running. Like if you were running a game of Gumshoe, right? So detective noir, solving a case, you wouldn't just have the solution completely up to the players. You would have them picking up clues, learning different things. Okay, now we know who did it. Wouldn't be like, oh, okay, whatever. Bamboozled Great Crowd says Mr. Toad's Wild Ride was their favorite ride next to Captain Nemo. I was a big fan of both of those as well. No joke. I liked Captain Nemo because you get to see the mermaids. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Cooperative Waffle says, Call of Cthulhu is going bonkers without knowing you already did. Sorting Session Z. Cooperative Waffle says, I bring a published module with their notes so we can think we are playing that adventure. Okay. Let's see. There are some 5e modules that the players could lose when it gets to the end, says Bamboozled Great Crowd. Yeah, and it should be. It should be. And the reality is there should be, certain shades of victory. It shouldn't just be, oh, yes, oh, the sun shines forever. TV says you can shift the location of clues if you need to, but you can't fully sandbox a mystery/investigation game. No. But if you're going to run a mystery sort of game, and this is something that I started doing years and years ago with Call of Cthulhu. If there's clues, the players find them. If it's something, if it's like a minor clue, yeah, okay, maybe they missed that. But if it's something crucial to the advancement of the game, I make sure that they find it as long as they put effort in. I don't just have somebody show up and be like, oh, hey. Yeah, because that's another sign of really bad game design or adventure design. And we see this a lot with 5e Dungeons and Dragons adventures. That, okay, so if, the player characters have to go through this to get this clue or this important piece of information. But if they fail, later someone shows up and gives them the information. Well, I'll tell you what, then just give them the fucking information after they go through the process of what you were trying to do. Oh, you gotta do this and do that and do this. Bunch of challenge rolls. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh. Womp, womp, womp. Hey, look, NPC boy just showed up. He's got some information for us. I am not a believer in just wasted dice rolls. I'm not playing a game, not running a game simply to throw dice around. If I could go through an entire game session without rolling dice, I'd be like, man, that's awesome. I'd be like, man, that was great. The Madman says they had an instant recently where an event they had planned didn't happen. I pivoted, continued on with the players' choices, made it up on the fly. I swear, Elliot and Ed still remember the zombie private investigator that hounded them for months in Call of Cthulhu. Yeah, we had nothing to do with this story. There was no zombie in it. It was based on, the decisions they made. And the funny thing is, they never even asked, like, how come this guy's a zombie? Well, you did him dirty, boys. You did him dirty. And now he wants revenge. So maybe they're the ones who said he was a zombie. I didn't. He just was the undead. Bamboozled Great Crowd says, very little room to go off script in a dungeon crawl. That's very true. I completely agree with that. Very, very difficult for you to go off script in, say, like an old school Essentials adventure. or an adventure that's somewhatly like that. A lot of the okay, I'll take that back because I haven't seen a lot of the third-party Shadow Dark stuff. I have seen some, and some of the better stuff out there is pretty much, you get your bullet points on what's there, and depending on how the players react, what their characters do, then the adventure continues through those prompts. Bard the Bear Wolfson, a published 5e adventure that was a railroad for them was Elemental Evil. Terrible. I was not a fan of I'm trying to think, what's my least favorite of the 5e adventures? I didn't get a review copy of The Giants for whatever reason. In fact, I think out of the entire 5e run, I'm missing 2 books, and that's one of them. And every once in a while, I kind of kick around, maybe, should I pick it up? Because one has been replaced, so that I don't really care that much about. But not having the Storm Giant Kings, whatever. So I can't say anything about that. But it was actually the first 5e Dungeons and Dragons campaign that came out, and it's Tyranny of Dragons. I thought it was pretty bad. I really did. Pretty bad. Okay. Danny Gable says Goodman Games original adventures reincarnated are some of their favorite books. Yes, I am a big fan as well. There you go. Storm King's Thunder is the adventure. Like I said, I kind of kick it around when I go to Gen Con and I go to the store, the auction store. I take a peek to see if it's floating around in there. But the reality is, it's like stuff that goes to the store, people are way, way, way off their nut when it comes to the prices that they put on stuff. And it's like, I could go on eBay and get this thing for $6. You want 60 in the store? Yeah, you'll be picking this back up. Troy Cornelson's with us tonight. Welcome, Troy. So to sum up, in my opinion, once again, that's all it is, my opinion, I think railroading isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times it's going to depend on the game that you as the GM are running. I mean, if you are running a hex crawl of any sort, hell, there's no need to be railroading anybody. If you're running, say, in fact, hold on. I'm hoping to have the review of this weekend because I've read it. I'm done with it. The Ruined Abbey of St. Cleud for old school. Oh, I'm sorry. This is for Dolmenwood now. There's no need to railroad in this. It's all okay. This is the scene. Here you go. This is what's going on in this area. This is what's going on in this area. This is what the monsters, the NPCs. This is why they're there. Things like that. Kevin R. Smith says one of the few misses from Cobalt Press, but then they were actually writing it well. The 5e team was still tweaking the rules. Yeah, that was kind of an odd. I thought was weird too is when years later, Wizards of the Coast was like, "Oh, hey, we're releasing an anniversary edition of Tyranny of Dragons as one book," and I was like, "Yeah, but it's still crappy. Like, really was no need for you to do this. It's cash grab." But I don't think that railroading is a bad thing. You can do it as a game master And if your players don't realize that's what's going on, then man, that is a wonderful thing. But if you're the kind of game master who dictates what player characters do outside of their owner's agency, or if you sit there and you tell your players what their characters are feeling emotionally, stop it. Because those are, in my opinion, some of the worst offenses. It's a player character. It is that player's character. Allow them to do what they want with that character. And allow the player to determine how they feel about a situation. Now, I'm not talking about I feel wet because it's raining out. I'm talking about, oh, you feel sad because, no. That's not up to you as a game master. Higzilla is joining us. Welcome once again. I'm getting ready to wrap up tonight. So there you have it. Tuesday's topic is making a stand against AI in tabletop gaming. We're going to talk about it. It is, I got to say right now, AI. Right now, AI slop is everywhere in this hobby. And there's only one real way for us to put a stop to it. And we're going to talk about that next Tuesday. I think I might be titling the video, How Do We Stop AI Slop in either tabletop gaming or TTRPGs, what have you, because it is everywhere. Dan Webb says, so what is it about AI you don't like? You'll have to tune in Tuesday to find out. You can share your thoughts as well there, Dan. Dan's like, what are you talking about, man? I work for a data center. Bart the Bear Wolfson asks if I can mail them an Italian beef sandwich. They miss Chicago food. I lived in Arizona. I lived in the Phoenix Valley. So, yeah, I understand what it's like. There were some decent places, but not for like Italian beef. People were like, oh, you're from Chicago. You got to go to XYZ. And I'd go to XYZ and I'd be like, there you go. Keith Lewis says, how to stop slop in tabletop. I think we'll do how to stop AI slop in tabletop. All righty, everybody. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, you get a tip of the cap. Because not only were you keeping me company as I was sharing the news and pontificating, you also keep each other company. So that's a bonus there, right? So pretty cool. There was some discussion earlier about Critical Role, and then what was it? What was the discussion? Oh, it was music. It was music. I think it was yesterday. So, hey, I don't railroad chat. So there's that. Anyway, I also know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com, where you're going to find plenty of news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to see here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday Once again, our topic will be, as was just pointed out, how to stop AI slop in tabletop. Maybe I'll wrap that. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. If you do subscribe, don't forget, select all notifications, because that way you'll be informed not only when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings, right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. You'll also get a notice whenever I share any other videos, such as my upcoming review of The Ruined Abbey of St. Cloud or Dolmenwood from my friends over at Exalted Funeral and Necrotic Gnome. All right. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, I certainly hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.